Several days later, Dongshik had already been rapidly teleported out of the tower. He was wearing a padded jacket, and he brought all the collected information about Sejun Park to his master. Dongshik's master, named Han Taijun, is the former guild master of the Phoenix Guild and also serves as a member of the Korea Awakened Association. Seeing his master after a long time, Dongshik asked about his health. Hearing this, Taijun was silent for a while, then suddenly became fiery, with flames literally rising from his head. Thinking that a talent who had already reached above the 40th floor had been kept a secret from him, combined with being trapped in a room as cold as a refrigerator, Dongshik felt very uncomfortable from his master's fury. Seeing this, Dongshik asked his master not to be so angry. After all, he himself had secretly climbed to the 52nd floor. Taijun now wanted to know if his disciple had withheld any information, but the content was essentially already in the report. However, regarding the profession of a Black Tower farmer, both Taijun and Dongshik had never encountered it before. After understanding the situation, Taijun sat back down. Seeing the scars on his master's hands, Dongshik understood that the curse of the flame affecting him had spread even more. To this, Taijun was indifferent, only feeling a bit itchy. If it weren't for the curse, he would have liked to immediately enter the tower to search for Sejun Park. After a brief exchange with his disciple, Taijun was curious as Dongshik's visit surely had a purpose beyond just these matters. It turned out Dongshik was concerned that people from other countries might investigate Sejun Park's background, so he wanted to request support from the Awakened Association to help protect Sejun Park's family. Hearing this, Taijun assured Dongshik that they had been notified and were ready to guard, ensuring no foreign country would steal such a talent. As for the protection, Taijun delegated Dongshik to arrange it, with the Awakened Association responsible for providing manpower. He also revealed that before Dongshik's arrival, people from several countries had already attempted to make contact, but fortunately, they had been stopped by their personnel. As he was leaving, Dongshik took out the reward given by Teo, which he presented as a gift to his master. With these magic cherry tomatoes, there would be some effect on the flame curse. This was the first time Taijun had truly gotten his hands on the magic cherry tomatoes, and he did not hesitate to pop them into his mouth. Just like the rumors, they indeed tasted very good. After saying goodbye to his master, Dongshik delivered the vegetables brought by the little cat to Sejun Park's home. Seeing this, the family was quite puzzled, but Sejun Park's brother, Sidal, immediately recognized the popular weight loss magic cherry tomatoes. After delivering the goods, Dongshik explained the current situation. Since many people were targeting Sejun Park, his family might also be in danger, and the Awakened Association wanted to take on the job of protecting them, so Dongshik suggested that Sejun Park's family should move as soon as possible. Hearing this, Sejun Park's parents were a bit stunned, as they hadn't even finished paying off their house loan and wondered where they could move to. Dongshik then mentioned that he had already prepared a house for them in another location. Learning it was a well-known luxurious neighborhood, Sidal curiously asked if the area was filled with celebrities. Dongshik mentioned that if they moved there, they would be living next to his own house, but his daughter, Sarah, was indeed a member of the famous girl group LJSN in Korea. Hearing this, Sidal was surprised, as LJSN was the hottest group in the country. The thought that Dongshik was the father of his idol made him immediately bow down in respect. Persuaded by Dongshik, Sejun Park's family accepted the suggestion to move. Meanwhile, in the Black Tower administrator's space, Aileen was cooking while looking at a cookbook. As she sprinkled one precious ingredient after another, a strong golden light suddenly burst from the pot, so intense that Aileen couldn't look directly at it. When the light subsided, she looked down and couldn't help but feel delighted. Meanwhile, outside the cave, the green onions that Sejun Park had planted 2 weeks ago had finally grown, and now they could be harvested. He was curious whether the green onions outside the cave would also be an item. Slowly cutting off a leaf, however, there was no prompt. Sejun Park thought he had grown ordinary vegetables, but then Black Warrior Bunny pointed to the base of the green onion. Understanding its meaning, Sejun Park pulled up the green onion with its roots. Sure enough, the system soon delivered a message. He had harvested a detoxifying green onion, which even reached a C+ grade. Not only did it taste better, but it could also neutralize poisons below C+ and improve liver function. After reading all the information, Sejun Park was very excited. Next was to taste and see how it was, and he and Black Warrior Bunny quickly took a few bites. According to their unanimous opinion, it tasted no different from the green onions they had eaten before. Since they were not poisoned, the detoxifying effect could not be determined at the moment. Fortunately, the enhancement of liver function should be a great help to those who like drinking, and selling it should not be a problem. At that time, Shovel Bunny came looking for Sejun Park, as it was time to eat, but there were no more fish and crayfishes in the pond. Seeing this, his companions were very disappointed. The only source of protein was gone. With no choice, Sejun Park stated that they might have to go without meat for a while. Just as everyone was feeling sad, Aileen suddenly appeared. She said that to celebrate 200 days since Sejun Park entered the tower, she had specially prepared a commemorative gift by hand. She then issued a quest, the content of which was to submit a cherry tomato, and the reward would be Eileen's gift. Subsequently, a large iron pot fell down, but the contents made Sejun Park frown. Inside was a dark cuisine, the first dish Eileen the dragon had made, and the prompt indicated that consuming it would result in a C-grade toxin poisoning. Seeing the system message, Sejun Park quickly realized that it was actually an item. Eileen said she had put a lot of effort into making it and was now exhausted, and she told Sejun Park that he must finish eating it because if he didn't, Eileen would kill him. Then she went to sleep. Seeing this, Sejun Park was dumbfounded and anxiously asked what Eileen meant. After Eileen completely disappeared, Sejun Park turned to his companions, attempting to recruit them to eat it for him. Hearing this, the little rabbits quickly fled the area. Abandoned by his friends, Sejun Park couldn't help but tear up. The queen honeybee, smelling the odor, even went directly outside the cave. As for the kindly black dragon, it was now contentedly resting. Just then, Black Warrior Bunny thought of something and quickly called Sejun Park. It then picked up the detoxifying green onion that had just been harvested. Seeing this, Sejun Park suddenly understood that eating the green onion would counteract the C-grade poison. Even though the soup looked unappetizing, at least now he could be sure that drinking it wouldn't be fatal. After quickly eating the green onion to gain immunity to the poison, Sejun Park prepared to start eating. He was still hoping that the taste wouldn't be too bad. He then bravely took a sip, but just touching it with his tongue was unbearable for Sejun Park. The next second, he spat it out. The sudden outburst scared his companions, who were howling in chaos. Although he anticipated it would taste bad, the strong foul smell still made it hard for Sejun Park to swallow. He now wondered if Eileen, this winged pig, was trying to kill him. But having come this far, Sejun Park decided to finish it all. As he gulped it down, he kept telling himself that he can do it. Just as he thought he had reached the bottom, a live blobfish suddenly appeared, startling the poor farmer so much that he accidentally flipped the pot out of his hands. Unfortunately, the overturned pot, with its remaining poisons, spilled into the pond. Seeing this, the farm's companions were all dumbfounded. After finishing the soup, Sejun Park successfully gained stat points. Just when he thought it was over, the message panel suddenly exploded with notifications, one of which was a notification that Sejun Park gained experience for killing a giant electric eel. After quickly reading all the information, he was surprised as to why there would be a giant electric eel. After collecting the rewards, Sejun Park and his companions lay by the pond's edge. Now that the water inside was polluted, Cart Bunny was very dissatisfied with this. Seeing this, Sejun Park quickly apologized, unable to do anything else in his panic. It seemed they would not be able to use the water for a while. Although the rabbit family's water cans was large enough for everyone's needs, the residual poisons had flowed into the pond entrance. If the crayfishes and piranhas were poisoned to death, the situation would become even worse. They really lost their source of protein. But just now, the message mentioned a giant electric eel. Sejun Park speculated that on the other side of the pond cave there might be a larger ecosystem. He wondered if the recent decrease in fish was due to problems inside. At this moment, Sejun Park was motivated. As long as they could find a way inside the pond cave, then they could secure more sources of protein. Hearing Sejun Park's words, Black Warrior Bunny was eager to try. Seeing it wanted to swim into the cave, Sejun Park immediately stopped it. Even though they had eaten the detoxifying green onion, the cave entrance was too small. If something went wrong and he got stuck and unable to come out, it could be dangerous. Although he knew Black Warrior Bunny was thinking of everyone's well-being, Sejun Park didn't want to send Black Bunny to such a dangerous place. He then said, "Let's wait until the poisons have diluted before making plans." At the same time, he reassured everyone that there was plenty of stored food, so there was no need to worry. Hearing this, the companions also perked up. They still had to work hard together. Meanwhile, at the 99th floor's transportation crystal in the Black Tower, the Ox King was still quietly waiting for 1003's return. He was now wondering if 1003 had forgotten the task he had assigned. Turning his head, he asked 1001 nearby, only then learning that 1004, who had been sent to find 1003, hadn't returned either. After thinking it over, 1001 was worried that they might have strayed into the territory of the Crimson Grizzly Bear or the Queen Poisonous Honeybee in search of grass. After all, these are extremely dangerous monsters. Regarding this, the Ox King was not very worried. Both 1003 and 1004 were very strong and wouldn't be easily defeated, but 1001's words still concerned him. He then stood up and instructed 1001 to summon his subordinates here. During this time, 1001 would temporarily take over his position. The Ox King prepared to personally go and retrieve his tribespeople. After a while, the area outside the cave was filled with many green onion leaves. These are prepared for 1003 and 1004, enough for 100 minotaurs. Seeing the tall pile of grass, they happily jumped on top, enjoying the soft and comfy feel. Sejun Park then suggested that they take some when they go to sleep. Just then, the skill wishing for a good harvest of the straw hat activated, and the next second, freshly harvested green onions began sprouting green shoots, and the yield of this green onion field would increase by 50% over the next week. Since green onions vines already grow quickly. With the boost from the prayer for abundant harvest, their growth was visibly faster. Sejun Park looked back happily, while Sickle Bunny was full of confidence, ready to help Sejun Park with the harvest. At this moment, Aileen finally had enough rest, and she asked if the nutritional soup she made had been finished. Seeing this, Sejun Park showed off his physique, thanking Aileen's soup for helping him level up and becoming stronger. Aileen then asked about the taste, to which Sejun Park didn't know how to respond. Seeing the farmer hesitate to give feedback, she seemed quite sad. Sejun Park then hurriedly said that the taste was very good. Upon receiving confirmation, Aileen immediately prepared to make another pot. This startled Sejun Park, who then explained that Aileen had said she was so tired after cooking last time that she went straight to sleep. He was already happy just being able to talk with Aileen and didn't want her to exert herself making food. He would take over all the cooking duties himself. To get Aileen to agree not to make any more dark cuisines, Sejun Park's face was filled with sincerity. On the other side, Aileen hadn't expected the farmer to be so considerate of her. She was now overjoyed and grew even fonder of Sejun Park, and having received Aileen's assurance, Sejun Park was ecstatic. However, before Sejun Park could breathe a sigh of relief, the ground suddenly began to shake violently. Everyone was confused about what was happening. The next second, sensing danger, Mother Crimson Grizzly Bear immediately got ready for battle. Then, in the green onion field ahead, the area boss of the 99th floor, the Ox King, shockingly appeared. The Ox King had come to the green onion fields near the cave. He immediately let out a roar, and his powerful presence almost made Sejun Park and his companions lose their footing, forcing them to cover their ears. Mother Crimson Grizzly Bear protected everyone under her, watching as the Ox King charged over, leaving Sejun Park and the others in a state of panic. At this moment, Administrator Aileen sent a message. She informed Sejun Park that the opponent was the Ox King, the boss guarding the 99th floor's waypoint, but that they couldn't leave their territory to guard it. Seeing the administrator's message, Sejun Park then realized that the opponent was the monster blocking his way to get out of the tower. However, Aileen was also puzzled as to why the Ox King would appear here, so she stated she would go and communicate. In the administrator's space at that time, Aileen was browsing through books left by her grandfather, Kaiser. It was clearly recorded that guardian bosses are not supposed to leave their territory, but given the urgency of the situation, she immediately used her administrator's rights to try to summon the Ox King for a dialogue. To her surprise, the next second, the Black Tower indicated that the action could not be executed, leaving Aileen dumbfounded. It was the first time she had encountered a communication failure, and out of helplessness, Aileen quickly relayed the message to Sejun Park. The little rabbits were already very scared. As for Mother Crimson Grizzly Bear, she was ready to fight. Hearing Mother Crimson Grizzly Bear's voice, Sejun Park and the others were very worried. So, they quickly urged the Crimson Grizzly Bear to flee together, as the boss-level Ox King was not something she could handle. However, Mother Crimson Grizzly Bear did not back down and continued to stand in front of everyone. The next second, the Ox King forcefully stomped his hoof and then leaped into the air, his powerful presence bearing down on them, and the farm's companions thought they were doomed. Even Aileen panicked. With this axe strike, Sejun Park might be wiped out directly. In just a moment, Mother Crimson Grizzly Bear had already pounced. Unexpectedly, the Ox King's axe fell to the ground. Noticing that Sejun Park was unharmed, he turned around in surprise. He was confused because the Ox King's target was not them, but the green onions that Sejun Park and his friends had prepared for the Minotaurs. At this moment, the Ox King delightfully took a bite of the green onion leaf, and then couldn't help but let out a satisfied moo. Seeing this, everyone was stunned as in he, just a bull, a gigantic bull, that likes green onions. However, they didn't dare disturb the Ox King, just quietly watching as it ate heartily. But soon, the Ox King seemed to think of something. He grabbed a large bunch of green onion leaves, then picked up its axe with its mouth, and amidst Sejun Park's shouts of surprise, this formidable 99th floor boss actually ran off like a bandit. Watching the Ox King run further and further away, Aileen understood that it was returning to its own territory, the waypoint. Not until the Ox King completely disappeared did everyone finally breathe a sigh of relief. They had really been scared. After calming down, Sejun Park was very thankful for Mother Crimson Grizzly Bear's protection. Faced with such a monster, she didn't back down at all. Although none of the companions were hurt, the farmland had suffered severe damage. Immediately, Sejun Park and the little rabbits started cleaning up, the fruits of their long labor now a mess. Everyone was quite downhearted. Seeing Aileen worried about him, Sejun Park first thanked her, but then mentioned that he was still somewhat glad. If he had known earlier that the opponent loved green onions, he would have brought green onion leaves to visit the Ox King sooner. Because of the information previously obtained from 1003 and Aileen, the Minotaur tribe is known to highly value honor, and being their king, it would be even more so. Hearing the farmer's words, Aileen was catching on to Sejun Park's intentions. Sejun Park then flashed a wicked smile. After destroying such a large part of the farm and stealing their crops, how many fold should I make him pay for his debt? Before long, Sejun Park had prepared the food. They needed to hurry hurry up and have lunch today, as they would have to continue cleaning up the mess made by the Ox King later. But facing a meal that was entirely vegetarian, the little rabbits started to make a fuss. Lately, they had been quite troublesome due to the lack of meat. Faced with this, Mrs. Rabbit was also helpless. So, Sejun Park gestured to Bae, who was nearby. Now look, even Bae is eating well and not saying a thing. You'll become adults soon when the blue moon arrives. Don't you want to become adults? The baby rabbits then obediently started eating. With Bae as a role model, and considering the non-fussy crimson grizzly cub, Sejun Park of course had to praise it properly. But what puzzled him was that recently, Bae hadn't grown at all. Sejun Park thought there could only be two possibilities. Either Bae wasn't eating enough, or it was sick. While Sejun Park was playing with Bae, Teo finally rushed back to the cave. Hearing its voice, Sejun Park was immediately delighted. But turning his head, he was curious about what 1003 and 1004 were carrying. Subsequently, 1003 explained, they are from the Silver Wolf tribe. At this moment, Teo jumped onto Sejun Park's shoulder, and the little cat explained that it was these three silver wolves who had attacked him earlier, fortunately having been subdued by 1004. Not knowing what to do, they brought them along for Sejun Park to decide. Seeing this, Sejun Park wanted to ask them some questions, but they were still sleeping. It turns out, on the way here, Elka was too noisy, so 1004 had knocked them out. At this time, the little cat also noticed the mess in the farmland behind them, curious about why it was so disordered. Immediately, Sejun Park explained to the two minotaurs that the Ox King had been here. Hearing the farmer's words, they were instantly worried, not understanding how their king knew to find them here. However, eating was still the main priority, and they would look into this matter in detail later. Soon after, the two minotaurs happily went to eat, leaving Sejun Park and the little cat to guard the silver wolves. At this moment, Teo was about to tell Sejun Park something important, but suddenly, the old silver wolf, Elka, stood up. This dangerous aura made Sejun Park and Teo quickly turn around. Fortunately, at the critical moment, Bae forcefully repelled Elka, preventing any harm to them. Now, Bae was staring intensely at the enemy in front, and the old silver wolf, enraged to the extreme, took the opportunity of the two minotaurs' absence to cause trouble. But Bae's strength made Elka realize this was another big problem. Just then, Teo hurriedly reminded Sejun Park that his straw hat had disappeared. Right after that, Elka and Elko instantly jumped away. Hearing the noise, the two minotaurs also turned back, but the straw hat was suddenly seen in Elka's claws. The old silver wolf, having no desire to fight after obtaining the item, left Sejun Park and Teo lamenting the opponent's cunning. Ahead, the old silver wolf quickly warned Elka and Elko, but they hadn't run a few meters before they were suddenly blocked by a massive figure ahead. The behavior of the few silver wolves undoubtedly enraged the Crimson Giant Bear. Watching Mother Crimson Grizzly Bear's demeanor, everyone was extremely nervous. Elka and the others immediately dared not move, as the three wolves were already scared stiff. Then, the Crimson Giant Bear suddenly slammed into the ground. Although it did not directly attack the silver wolves, it still instilled them with endless fear. Seeing this, the old silver wolf immediately put down the straw hat and signaled its surrender. Soon, Sejun Park retrieved the straw hat, simply dusted it off, and put it back on. Fortunately, the straw hat had not been damaged during the snatching ordeal. Next was dealing with the silver wolves. Whether it was Mother Crimson Grizzly Bear and Bae, or the two minotaurs, they were all very angry at the three silver wolves. 1004 regretted not breaking their legs earlier, and Mother Crimson Grizzly Bear expressed her support, quickly stepping forward. The little cat told Sejun Park of Bae's intent, as it thought they should eat the wolves, which startled Sejun Park. Thus, he quickly soothed Bae and asked Queen Honeybee Jr. to help prepare some honey for Bae to eat. After the Crimson Grizzly Cub followed Queen Honeybee Jr. away, Sejun Park signaled everyone to calm down and sit to talk properly. Hearing this, the companions cooled down a bit. Elka was incredulous. It was curious about Sejun Park's identity, wondering why these powerful monsters would listen obediently to him. As for Elko next to it, it immediately covered its eyes in fear, because it remembered the stories that circulated in the Black Tower about someone who could command the monsters of the 99th floor, saying in fear, he must be the Black Dragon. Legends have always existed in the Black Tower that the Great Black Dragon, who governs the 99th floor, is the true ruler of the Black Tower. But no matter how Elka looked, Sejun Park seemed to be a frail human. It suddenly thought of a possibility that the Great Black Dragon was deliberately showing weakness. He wanted to know why the Silver Wolf tribe was after Teo and this straw hat. However, the next second, Elka was on the ground with its tribesmen, sincerely apologizing, stating they did not know the little cat was a subordinate of the Great Black Dragon. Hearing this, Sejun Park was somewhat stunned. He didn't know whom the other party was referring to as the Black Dragon. At the same time, in the administrator's space, watching the upheaval in the cave, Aileen suddenly became excited because she thought of a fun game and quickly sent a message to Sejun Park. Aileen suggested that Sejun Park represent her to display the Black Dragon's majesty, which would also help subdue the Silver Wolves. Seeing what Aileen had suggested about representing observing her, Sejun Park finally understood that Aileen was not just a flying pig but a fearsome black dragon. But it made sense. After all, she could issue tasks and rewards to him. Since pretending to be the black dragon and showing authority would make Aileen happy, Sejun Park started to bluff. He put on what he thought was a very arrogant expression and loudly told the silver wolves that he was the black dragon. Seeing this, the 3 silver wolves bowed even lower, while the 2 minotaurs nearby were somewhat dumbfounded. Aileen was horrified with how Sejun Park was acting. Now, 1003 still confusedly asked Sejun Park whether his identity as the black dragon was real. In response, 1004 thought it was being rather foolish. The little cat naturally understood that Sejun Park was pretending, but his recent antics gave Teo the creeps. However, Teo played along, thinking that since he was a subordinate of the black dragon, he should act even more arrogantly. At this moment, Elka apologized again sincerely, understanding it had made an unforgivable mistake, but still hoped to be given a chance for forgiveness. Seeing this, Sejun Park said that he was willing to make an exception and forgive the silver wolves, but on the condition that they pay a sum of dungeon coins as compensation for the life-threatening danger that Teo faced. This large sum undoubtedly frightened the 3 silver wolves, while the little cat was inexplicably moved. It didn't expect to be so precious in Sejun Park's eyes. Immediately after, Sejun Park quickly prompted Teo to prepare a contract. Teo said, "If you have no money, then you must repay with your labor." His words puzzled Elka, and then the little cat explained the rule. At this, Elki hurriedly reminded the chieftain because Elka and the great landowner Greed still had a contract. With no choice, the old silver wolf continued to beg for mercy and apologize. As for signing a contract to work here, they probably couldn't do it. This made Sejun Park and Teo somewhat incredulous, and Aileen in the administrator's space was angry because Sejun Park, now pretending to be the black dragon, was being refused by the silver wolves. Fortunately, Sejun Park was not angry. He just smiled slightly and then asked Elka why he refused. After some thought, the old silver wolf then said, "Because the 85th floor where their tribe is located has been experiencing a long-term drought. There is now a severe shortage of food, so strong tribespeople like them come to work for the great landowner Greed in exchange for food." And this time, the task issued by Greed was to find the stolen straw hat. Due to the failure of the task, the tribe's food source will definitely be cut off, so Elka cannot agree to Sejun Park's proposal as it would cause the young members of their tribe to starve. Upon this, Sejun Park suddenly asked for the old silver wolf's name. After being informed, he asked Elka to look around and see where they were. Slowly looking around, and with Sejun Park's explanation, Elka realized they were in front of a large farmland. Sejun Park said he would add other conditions to the contract. The 10,000 dungeon coins would be paid by the entire silver wolf tribe. During the period he works here, Sejun Park would also provide food for the whole tribe. He then asked if Elka was willing now, but before the old silver wolf could speak, Elki and Elko were overjoyed because they would no longer have to work for that wild boar. They survived and would have food to eat. Thus, they agreed to the proposal to work on the farm. Elka was very grateful to Sejun Park, as things had finally come to a satisfactory resolution, and everyone appeared very happy. Aileen was also surprised by this outcome, but she thought Sejun Park handled it well, and she praised the farmer greatly. Soon the contract was written up, and once both parties pressed their prints and it was witnessed by the Black Tower, the Silver Wolves became Teo's underlings, responsible for ensuring the little cat's safety in the future. At this time, Teo took the 3 Silver Wolves to greet the others. Teo stated that 1003 and 1004 were their seniors, and they should respect the 2 Minotaurs even more in the future. As for Sejun Park, he was now considering the landowner Greed mentioned by Elka, who seemed to be a significant figure in the tower. The little cat was happy to have underlings, and it asked Sejun Park to prepare some grilled fish for it to enjoy a meal with the Silver Wolves. However, Sejun Park's reply stunned Teo. Learning that there were no fish in the pond, the little cat immediately threw itself on the ground in a tantrum, even declaring that it would not go to work if there were no fish. Sejun Park was also helpless as he was already trying his best to find a solution. Fortunately, the poisons in the water had largely diluted. Now, Sejun Park asked if Black Warrior Bunny was ready, and hearing this, Black Warrior Bunny was full of confidence, and they were about to officially explore the other end of the pond. Then, it picked up a wooden mallet and leapt into the air, smashing the rocks above the cave entrance the next second. As the rocks fell, the entrance to the mysterious waters appeared. Now the entrance was large enough that there was no risk of being stuck. Black Warrior Bunny dove in without hesitation, but quickly swam back. Because it was too dark inside, it couldn't see anything. So, Sejun Park asked Teo if he had something that could provide light. At this time, the little cat was still playing with the baby rabbits. Hearing Sejun Park's words, Teo began searching through his backpack, unsure if he had anything similar. To make searching easier, the little cat dumped out everything inside. Among the items, a purple necklace caught Sejun Park's attention, which Teo had previously purchased in the peddler's pathway. The message indicated it was a grade E necklace with a scratched jewel, with the rest of the details unknown. Sejun Park asked Administrator Aileen to help appraise it. Merely a few seconds after taking it back, Aileen indicated that this item was very suitable for current use, which made Sejun Park somewhat excited. Then he quickly handed a basket of magic cherry tomatoes to Aileen, and soon after the appraisal, the message indicated that the item was named the Necklace of Light, and after appraisal, the necklace looked completely different from its original appearance. The function of this Necklace of Light is the skill, light, and the higher the user's level, the stronger the light shines. After reading all the effects, Sejun Park hurriedly shared the good news with his companions. With this, we can see clearly inside the cave. Seeing this, Teo said, "If it's helpful, can I get more Teo the CEO time?" Hearing this, Sejun Park grabbed the little cat's paws. And indeed, Teo's paws brought good luck. Considering the little cat's consistently excellent performance, Sejun Park decided to restore its position as Teo the CEO. Starting today, Teo would also be the CEO of the distribution of their crops. Hearing this, Teo was very happy. Today it had finally become the official CEO again. At the same time, to celebrate the little cat's promotion, Sejun Park allowed Teo to be the president for the day. Immediately after, Teo issued an order for everyone to use the necklace to bring lots of fish back. Both Black Warrior Bunny and Sejun Park were full of confidence at this moment. Sejun Park first tested the function of the Necklace of Light. Indeed, as described in the message, it emitted light when worn. Thinking that the higher the level, the stronger the effect, he took off the necklace and let Black Warrior Bunny try it. Sure enough, when Black Warrior Bunny wore it, the light it emitted was many times brighter than Sejun Park's, so bright that he could hardly open his eyes. Although he already knew the outcome, the vast difference still made Sejun Park feel a bit jealous. However, with this light, seeing in the dark hole won't be a problem anymore. Just in case, Sejun Park had Black Warrior Bunny eat some more detoxifying green onions and made it a safety rope out of green onions. He then instructed Black Warrior Bunny to hold tightly onto the safety rope and to quickly pull it twice in case of danger, and he would immediately pull it up. Considering the inconvenience of a mallet underwater, Sejun Park also gave Black Warrior Bunny his dagger and a bag. With all the preparations done, Black Warrior Bunny confidently waved at Sejun Park, took a deep breath outside, and the next second, it dived into the water without hesitation. The cave, just as Sejun Park thought, was a passage connecting to another ecosystem. Just swimming for about 10 seconds, Black Warrior Bunny saw a light and accelerated its descent. Soon, it arrived next to a broken stone wall. After coming out from inside, it turned out to be a vast water area, the likes of which Black Warrior Bunny had never seen before. It was very curious. Nearby, Black Warrior Bunny saw many fish, turtles, sharks, and even a giant whale. However, Black Warrior Bunny knew its mission was to find crayfishes and fish, or any edible meat. After looking around for a while, it noticed a gigantic creature ahead, with many crayfishes and fish floating nearby. Seeing the toxic substances emanating from them, Black Warrior Bunny immediately understood that they had absorbed the poisons from the big pot. Now, Black Warrior Bunny set its sights on a gigantic electric eel. After getting close, it took out its dagger and started cutting from above the eel. Suddenly, a glow emerged, revealing a clump of golden substance inside. Seeing this, Black Warrior Bunny was puzzled, so it slowly reached in and found that it was the insides of the electric eel. Having obtained such a valuable item, Black Warrior Bunny was already imagining Sejun Park's praise. Immediately, it put the gallbladder into the bag and then took out a green onion rope and tied it around the eel. Black Warrior Bunny planned to bring the electric eel back as food, but just then, it suddenly sensed a dangerous presence. The next second, a giant shark appeared and opened its mouth to swallow the electric eel. Seeing this, Black Warrior Bunny was quite frightened. Fortunately, the great white shark's target was only the electric eel, which allowed it to escape the ordeal. However, the green onion rope tied to the eel was pulled, causing a sudden change that made Black Warrior Bunny drown. Luckily, the shark's sharp teeth split the eel in two, so Black Warrior Bunny was not dragged away. With its last bit of strength, Black Warrior Bunny quickly pulled the safety rope. Feeling this, Sejun Park immediately had everyone get ready. Everyone pulled together. The next second, Sejun Park pulled the rope with all his might, and the baby rabbits also helped. Soon, with everyone's effort, Black Warrior Bunny was pulled out, but it was in very bad shape. This left Sejun Park in a panic. He loudly called out to Black Warrior Bunny, but Black Warrior Bunny still had its eyes closed. Seeing this, everyone was momentarily frightened, all worried about Black Warrior Bunny's condition. Seeing the urgency of the situation, Sejun Park was focused on helping Black Bunny, and he handed his hat to the Queen Honeybee for safekeeping. Then he prepared to perform CPR on Black Warrior Bunny. Unexpectedly, the next second, Black Warrior Bunny suddenly opened its eyes. Startled by Sejun Park's appearance, it shot a lot of water from its mouth onto Sejun Park's face. Fortunately, Black Warrior Bunny finally woke up, and upon seeing this, the rabbit couple quickly embraced their child. At this moment, Sejun Park was also very happy, but Black Warrior Bunny blamed him because he had almost been kissed by Sejun Park. Seeing Black Warrior Bunny's disdain, Sejun Park felt somewhat displeased. After all, it was almost his first kiss kiss as well. Meanwhile, in the administrator's space, Aileen was amused by the scene in the cave, but Sejun Park felt his mouth was a bit salty. At that moment, Aileen sent a message explaining that Black Warrior Bunny might have entered the Sea of Dimensions, which exists between each floor of the tower. Due to the powerful monsters in the sea, safe passages are used to traverse the floors. However, water also flows into the Sea of Dimensions, just like the pond in the cave. The Sea of Dimensions, home to various creatures besides monsters, also contains many delicacies. Now, Sejun Park finally understood why marine creatures appeared in the cave's pond. Once Black Warrior Bunny had rested, Sejun Park excitedly asked if there were any edible fish inside. Hearing this, Black Warrior Bunny opened the bag and pulled out a clump of golden substance. The message showed that it was the insides of the electric eel, grade A. If consumed, it would grant lightning-related abilities, though the minimum requirement was having at least 10 points in mana. Seeing the information, Sejun Park became even more excited. Could it be that Black Warrior Bunny had found a giant electric eel? Black Warrior Bunny affirmed this positively. Then it also picked up the safety rope, and with Black Warrior Bunny's sudden force, the tied remnants of the eel were brought out. Seeing this, all the little friends were astounded, and Cart Bunny even drooled helplessly. Once the eel was out of the water, many piranhas and crayfishes surged out, apparently attracted by the eel's body. In no time at all, the entire pond was once again filled with high-quality seafood. At this point, Sejun Park hugged Black Warrior Bunny. He and his friends were very grateful to Black Warrior Bunny. To celebrate today's harvest, Sejun Park decided to hold a feast to celebrate properly. After a while, all the food was prepared. But now, Sejun Park learned that his family was in danger. Teo mentioned that Dongshik had told him this, and Dongshik also promised to protect Sejun Park's family. This worried Sejun Park. He hadn't expected the magic cherry tomatoes to become so popular. After thinking for a while, Sejun Park told Teo that next time, it should find out how Dongshik was protecting his family and to get some detailed information. As for Kim Dongshik, who had helped him a lot, Sejun Park decided to thank him. Hearing from Teo that Dongshik liked magic cherry tomatoes, Sejun Park then thought of giving him some crops as a reward next time. After discussing the important matters, Sejun Park started to feed the little cat some cat treats, but the insides of the electric eel fell out during the process. Seeing this, Sejun Park remembered that the information said eating this could grant a new skill related to thunder and rain. Hearing this, Teo became quite hostile. Static electricity makes his fur stiff and ruins it. Since entering the tower, Sejun Park had learned skills related to agriculture, but gaining a skill related to lightning might make him more like an adventurer. Seeing how happy Sejun Park was, the little cat urged him to eat it quickly, but Sejun Park sadly said that he couldn't eat it right now, because using the gallbladder requires a minimum of 10 mana points, but his current mana is only 8.05. Hearing this, Teo immediately started to mock him relentlessly, as that was indeed very weak. Annoyed, Sejun Park thought little cat's mana couldn't be much higher. However, Teo stated that he wouldn't tell his own mana level. This infuriated Sejun Park, who then quickly took out the light necklace and put it around Teo's neck. Unexpectedly, the necklace emitted a strong light, dazzling even Bei. Now, the humiliated Sejun Park trembled, realizing he was the weakest in the entire farm. At that moment, Bei gestured towards its mouth, but Sejun Park refused because the necklace was not edible. Nearby, 1003 and 1004 were happily eating, and the 3 silver wolves had grilled fish brought by Cart Bunny. For this, Elka was very thankful. The other little rabbits were also enjoying the feast. Then Sejun Park came over to ask if the food was to their liking. Seeing him, the 3 silver wolves bowed, thanking the great black dragon for the blessing. But Sejun Park noticed the expression on the old silver wolf. "You must be missing the people of the 85th floor." Hearing this, Elka did not refute. It indeed worried about its tribe not having food. Sejun Park then told Elka that the blue moon was soon to come, and at that time, it could return. During this period, as long as they help in the farm, many grilled fish will be given for Elka to take back. Next, they needed to plant and harvest the delayed crops, which required Teo to lead the silver wolves to help. The little cat immediately agreed, and then set off with Elka and the others. Next, Sejun Park needed the help of 1003 and 1004 to take him somewhere. Hearing this, 1003 was puzzled about where to go. The next second, Sejun Park made a shocking statement, saying he wanted the 2 minotaurs to take him to collect a debt from the Ox King. Upon hearing this, 1003 and 1004 were instantly stunned. Meanwhile, at the 99th floor's waypoint, many minotaurs were eating green onions. They hadn't eaten for a long time, and the green onions brought back by the Ox King were highly liked by the clan. However, the Ox King was not happy about this. It seemed quite depressed. It initially went to the border to look for the 2 minotaurs, encountering red bears and other creatures along the way. But having not seen delicious grass for so long, the Ox King became overwhelmingly excited and left all other matters behind. As per tradition, the Ox King should have been disqualified as a black minotaur warrior, but fortunately, this trip yielded great rewards. Moreover, However, the crops on that land were obviously deliberately planted. But recalling the creatures it encountered then, the Ox King couldn't remember who the real owner of the plantation was. After some thought, it figured that it was planted by the white farmer bunny nearby. Although it didn't understand why the crimson grizzly bear was related to the white farmer bunnies, as the king of the black minotaur warrior, it should not steal. But the Ox King is the guardian of the 99th floor's waypoint, and the time allowed to leave is only 1 hour. Fortunately, each arrival of the blue moon resets this timer. Even though it's a short time, the Ox King decided to pay the price for the stolen grass after the blue moon. After all, having found a food source, it needs to keep negotiations to provide food for its people. However, now there is a new problem, which is that the Ox King doesn't know what it should pay them with. What it doesn't know is that Sejun Park is already preparing to go see it. But before he leaves, he needs to harvest as much mature crops as they can before heading out. Sejun Park was extremely hot, and the queen honeybee kindly held his straw hat for him. Sejun Park continued to harvest the magic cherry tomatoes. Amidst the daily hard work, his professional level unexpectedly rose to C grade, which surprised Sejun Park. He didn't notice that his job grade was so close to leveling up. Meanwhile, a message informed him that his professional trait had been enhanced, and he had even obtained a hidden skill called Friend of Nature. This is a talent for being close to nature, and it has a special effect. It makes communication with animals and plants with whom he doesn't share a language go smoothly. Seeing this effect, Sejun Park suddenly thought of something, so he tentatively called out to Mr. Rabbit. Hearing the sound, Mr. Rabbit responded, which startled Sejun Park and made him fall. Getting up, he hurriedly asked Mr. Rabbit to respond again. Seeing this, the sickle bunny nearby was puzzled and asked, "Uncle, is there something wrong?" This address made Sejun Park very happy. Then he picked up the sickle bunny and gave it a baffling rubdown. The sickle bunny indicated it was about to use its sickle to slash him, to which Sejun Park grabbed it and said, "Do you want to mess up my hair like last time?" At this remark, it was the little rabbit's turn to be stunned that they indeed could be understood now. At that moment, Sejun Park happily announced that he had acquired a new skill, the ability to communicate with creatures of nature. After confirming this, Mr. Rabbit and Sickle Bunny were very excited, so they quickly called everyone over. After hearing the explanation from the two rabbits, Mrs. Rabbit was also very surprised. However, she soon asked her husband skeptically, "Didn't Sejun Nim eat something strange again?" It was only when Sejun Park spoke directly to Mrs. Rabbit that she realized that their languages had indeed become mutually intelligible. Black Warrior Bonnie was even more excited, as it had always had many things it wanted to say to Uncle Sejun. Sejun Park and his companions felt the same, each having countless things they wanted to share with each other. Meanwhile, the queen honeybee shyly called out and hesitantly asked Sejun Park, "Can you really understand?" To this, Sejun Park gently stroked the queen honeybee's head and assured her, "Of course, I can clearly hear every word you say." The farmer's words brought a smile to the queen honeybee's face, and she happily threw herself onto Sejun Park, followed by the other poison honeybees. Today was the happiest time for Sejun Park. He told his companions that they must quickly spread the news outside the cave. Mr. Rabbit thoughtfully passed him a straw hat. When Sejun Park put it on, the message panel appeared again because his level had increased, so the straw hat of St. Patrick of Earth had also upgraded, unlocking a new skill, Growth Promoter. Specifically, it accelerates the growth of 10 types of crops for 7 days, with no side effects. After reading this, Sejun Park was even happier. This skill was simply awesome. With this effect, he now had another idea. After going outside the cave, Sejun Park planted some solar sweet potato and immediately activated the Growth Promoter skill. Indeed, under the influence of this skill, the seedlings soon began to grow. With the growth promotion, he no longer had to worry about the yield of solar sweet potatoes. However, as space was limited, Sejun Park planted them between the green onions fields. Then, accompanied by a flash of golden light, the seedlings grew once more, which puzzled Sejun Park. A message appeared and he understood that the solar sweet potato shoots had benefited from the green onions fields' wish for a bountiful harvest effect. His harvest would also increase by 50%. This double benefit pleasantly surprised Sejun Park. With the effects of two skills, the sun pumpkins and sweet potatoes would mature sooner than expected. Just then, a voice suddenly came from behind. It turned out that Bay had pounced towards Sejun Park. Immediately, he was directly overwhelmed by the little bear on the ground. Bay excitedly expressed that it had just heard from Black Warrior Bunny that Sejun Park can now understand them. Following that, Bay's address as dad left the farmer stunned. Sejun Park didn't expect that. Having never dated, he suddenly became a dad, and he even asked if this was appropriate with the mother Crimson Grizzly Bear. The Crimson Grizzly Bear didn't mind. She said, "For Bay, Sejun Park is like a father." The Crimson Grizzly Bear then bowed again. She was truly grateful for Sejun Park's help with herself and Bay. After listening to the mother Crimson Grizzly Bear's words, Sejun Park didn't think too much about it. He didn't mind having such a cute son. Now the little bear could finally happily say, "Finally, there's good food." Hearing Bay mention many foods, Sejun Park decided to let it eat something special, as he had just harvested harvested a new crop, which was the perfectly ripe giant potato. Its full name is strength potato. The potatoes were put into a pot with water, covered, and then cooked over fire. In no time, a deliciously boiled potato dish was ready. Besides, there were many other foods as accompaniments. At this moment, Sejun Park's face could not help but smile, and another interesting event was added to his tower adventure. As for Administrator Aileen in the administrator's space, she was now eating boiled potatoes. After enjoying it with his companions, he prepared to set off for the Ox King's territory. But hearing that Sejun Park was about to leave, Bae immediately lay on the ground and burst into tears, saying it had to go with Sejun Park no matter what. Sejun Park and his companions checked the items they needed to bring. Having just finished eating, they harvested many green onions leaves together. After checking, Sejun Park came over to get the little bear to stand up, telling Bae, hadn't it forgotten what it had promised before? Hearing this, the little bear was very sad, but still said it would take good care of the Queen Honeybee Jr. as it had promised Sejun Park before. Seeing this, Sejun Park comforted Bae, saying he would be back soon, and told the little bear not to be sad, as they would see each other again soon. The Queen Honeybee Jr. overhead was also gently stroking Bae's head, and with everyone's comfort, the little bear became calmer. After everything was ready, Elka bent down on the ground, indicating that today it would personally serve the Great Black Dragon. Subsequently, Sejun Park, Teo, and Black Warrior Bunny sat on the back of Old Silver Wolf. The path to the Ox King's territory was led by 1003 and 1004. The companions behind waved goodbye, and the little bear was no longer sad, as it continued to assume the responsibility of protecting the Queen Honeybee Jr. As for Sejun Park and Black Warrior Bunny, this was their first time leaving the cave to go elsewhere. With Elka's help, their speed of travel greatly increased. After just a short while, they arrived at the desolate lands. As they were about to reach their destination, Sejun Park suddenly noticed a strange area. In the distance, there was a large forest, but it emitted a sinister aura. Hearing Sejun Park's question, 1003 explained that there were creatures who were jerks there. At this point, 1004 began to roughly describe the situation of the 99th floor. It turned out that the 99th floor was divided into many territories, such as the territory of the Crimson Grizzly Bear where Sejun Park was previously, and now they were heading to the territory of the Minotaur clan. As for the place in the distance emitting a sinister aura, it belonged to the territory of the corrupt beings of the West. Although they were not always called the corrupt beings, 1004 mentioned that it was a dangerous place, best avoided. Her words piqued Sejun Park's curiosity, and it seemed he would need to consult Aileen for more details when he returned. But in the next second, a clump of mud hit Sejun Park's face, and the next thing he knew, he was on the ground. This scene alarmed his companions, who all worried about Sejun Park's condition. Fortunately, Sejun Park said he was not seriously hurt. When he looked ahead, he saw many minotaurs eating mud. Sejun Park was somewhat stunned. Was it because there was nothing to eat in the desolate lands? Seeing this, he finally understood why the two minotaurs were so excited about the green onions leaves earlier. Now 1004 was very angry, and she asked who was throwing things around. After hearing the sound, a blonde minotaur came from the front. Seeing 1004 and 1003, it was curious about why the two minotaurs were together, mistaking Sejun Park and the others as toys brought by the two minotaurs. It was about to ask for them when the next second, it was met with 1004's ruthless iron fist for its rude behavior. As for the blonde minotaur that took a punch, it had already fainted and was lying in the mud. Seeing the powerful 1004, 1003's face couldn't help but flush slightly. After a while, tribe members went to inform the Ox King that the missing 1003 and 1004 had returned. Soon, with the Ox King's approval, the two minotaurs stepped forward and explained their return from the territory of the Crimson Grizzly Bear. Hearing this, the nearby minotaurs were all very surprised, and the Ox King was overjoyed, as this meant he wouldn't have to make a trip himself. So, the Ox King asked Sejun Park and his group to come over, but he mistook them for subordinates of the Crimson Grizzly Bear. When only Sejun Park and the little cat arrived, the Ox King was puzzled, wondering why there was no white rabbit, but instead an unknown creature leading the way. At this point, Sejun Park and Teo introduced themselves. Although he had not heard these names before, the Ox King still acknowledged their hard journey here, noting that Sejun Park and the little cat looked weak. He then mentioned his care for weaker creatures, offering to rescue them from oppression if they were being mistreated in the Crimson Grizzly Bear's territory. After hearing the Ox King's words, Sejun Park knew there was a misunderstanding. He explained that, on the contrary, the mother Crimson Grizzly Bear and its cub were helping him, and that this trip was not to seek rescue, but to receive compensation for the crops stolen by the Ox King. If you do not want to be called a thief, it would be best to make amends. The word thief instantly angered the Ox King. Being the strongest monster on the 99th floor, the Ox King has a strong sense of honor and would not allow himself to be called a thief. Even facing such a formidable creature, Sejun Park and the little cat did not back down. Sejun Park loudly told the Ox King that the green onions leaves were crops he had planted, but the Ox King not only took them boldly but now shamelessly got angry first. After listening to Sejun Park's words, the nearby Minotaurs started realizing that the grass the king brought back was planted by someone else. Now, the Ox King realized that Sejun Park was the true owner of the farmland and quickly apologized to him. Because it is a protector of the waypoint and its actions are time limited, it had to leave in a rush at that time. As for compensation, the Ox King believes it is necessary, as it had already planned to make payment. So, the Ox King asked Sejun Park what he needed. Even if it was one of those legendary items from inside the tower, he would do his best to satisfy. The main purpose of Sejun Park's visit was just one, and he then mentioned that he wanted to use the waypoint. The farmer's words made the Ox King turn to look back, as the waypoint was something he had always guarded. However, after thinking for a while, the Ox King agreed. If this is what Sejun Park wants, then I have no choice but to agree. For my own honor, I believe it is worth it. With that, he stood up from his seat and invited Sejun Park to come forward. Seeing this, Sejun Park was very excited, and Teo was happy for him, because the little cat knew that Sejun Park had always wanted to leave the tower, and today he had finally arrived at the place closest to the outside of the tower. As long as he could use the waypoint, he would have the hope of returning outside. Standing in front of the waypoint, Sejun Park was somewhat lost. Ever since he knew there was a waypoint here, he had always wanted to come to this place. Slowly approaching the waypoint, Sejun Park reached out with a trembling hand. When he placed his hand on the crystal, the message panel transmitted a prompt. The 99th floor teleportation point has been stored, locating other waypoint. However, soon the message indicated that Sejun Park could not use the waypoint because he had not stored any other floor's waypoint. The news that he could not leave stunned Sejun Park. Seeing this, the Ox King then realized that Sejun Park was not an original resident of the Black Tower. He then said, "Although I don't know how Sejun Park came to the 99th floor, outsiders must start from the first floor and register the waypoint on each floor to have the right to use it. This has always been the rule of the Black Tower. The reason he can't leave is that Sejun Park has only one teleportation point on the 99th floor." After hearing the Ox King's words, Sejun Park despaired. He had thought he had a chance to leave the Black Tower, but now the little hope he held has completely vanished. Although Sejun Park had come with the worst expectations, now that he had personally confirmed there was no way to leave, he still felt an inevitable sense of emptiness. At this moment, the Ox King spoke, stating that he had fulfilled Sejun Park's request and no longer owed anything. Hearing this, Sejun Park also recovered his spirits and stood up, then confirmed what the Ox King had said. However, he now had a proposal and wanted to know if the Ox King was interested in hearing it. Sejun Park had the little cat open the bundle. Upon receiving the instructions, Teo immediately acted, and the next second, countless green onions leaves began to appear continuously. Seeing the tall pile of grass, all the Minotaurs in the area were stunned, their faces showing a longing expression, and they also recognized it as the food the king had brought back last time. The Ox King tremulously asked Sejun Park what he meant. To this, the farmer simply stated that it was just a little gift for a neighbor. His words puzzled the Ox King, but the food in front of him was so tempting that the Ox King couldn't help but drool. However, Sejun Park now spoke despondently, saying that if they could increase the planting area, they could have such green onions every day, but unfortunately, they were short on manpower, and clearing the land was labor-intensive. So his proposal was to trade with the Minotaur clan, exchanging food for the Minotaur's help. After some time, on the other side, Bae was sitting on a dirt mound, waiting with the Queen Honeybee Jr. for Sejun Park's return. At this time, the little bear was very gloomy, but soon it and the Queen Honeybee Jr. noticed what was happening ahead. Elka was bringing Sejun Park and the others back to the cave. When he saw his friends, Sejun Park greeted them happily. The little bear was even more excited. It ran while cheering that Dad was back. Sejun Park jumped down from the back of Old Silver Wolf and immediately embraced the approaching Bae. At that moment, the little bear told Sejun Park that it had been strong and had not continued crying. Mr. Rabbit also came outside upon hearing the voices, surprised at how quickly his friends had returned. Upon seeing Mr. Rabbit and Mrs. Rabbit, Black Warrior Bunny quickly went up to share the experiences of this trip. Sejun Park then waved to the back, and soon after, several Minotaurs walked up. They were the first group to come to the farm to clear the field. Sejun Park explained that the Ox King had agreed to his proposal and that the Minotaur clan would help with the farming. The few Minotaurs were now full of energy, eager to start working. Observing the Minotaur's strong muscles was full of envy. Hearing that they also knew 1003, the little bear became even happier. It also mentioned that it was the one that guided 1003 around the field, and that it would do the same for them. The few Minotaurs happily followed Bae away. Seeing this, Sejun Park did not stop them but turned to discuss with the little rabbits about preparing food. Meanwhile, Teo, who had returned with them, was still lying down, asleep. At the same time, in the waypoint area, there was a series of shouting voices. The Minotaurs were playing rock, paper, scissors, a game 1003 had devised to decide who could go to the farm to work first, and the first 10 were chosen in no time. Looking at his tribespeople, who were no longer as listless as before, 1005 was also very happy. It asked the Ox King if their territory could turn into a grassy plain full of green grass if they cultivated the land. The Ox King agreed, expressing hope for their future life. A few days later, the poisonous honeybees were flying one by one to the front, collecting nectar into bottles. Meanwhile, the little bear was guarding them closely. Sejun Park had thought that because the blue moon was about to descend, that the honeybees might not have time to collect nectar, but surprisingly they were able to fill all the bottles Teo had bought back. Sejun Park reminded the little bear to eat sparingly. Then he asked the mother Crimson Grizzly Bear if they were going to the deep forest today. After receiving an affirmative answer, Sejun Park prepared to give the little bear some more honey. Elka also told Sejun Park that they needed to go back to welcome the blue moon. The issue of food made old Silver Wolf a bit hesitant to speak, but seeing this, Sejun Park told him not to worry, as he had already prepared everything. He then presented the wolves with the food they were going to bring, which included seafood recently caught by Black Warrior Bunny, some of which were even salvaged from the Sea of Dimensions. Seeing such an abundance of delicacies, the Silver Wolves prostrated on the ground, thanking Black Warrior Bunny. In response, Black Warrior Bunny told them not to mind, as this was a small matter for him. Just as Sejun Park was thinking about how to help the Silver Wolves take the food back, Elka pulled out his backpack. Although it wasn't as big as those of peddlers, since the three of them had one, they were still able to fit all the food inside. After packing, the backpacks rested in the palms of the three Silver Wolves. Now that the food for everyone during the blue moon had been arranged, Sejun Park began to say goodbye to his friends. After bidding farewell, the mother Crimson Grizzly Bear and the Silver Wolves left, with the Silver Wolves heading to the 85th floor. Watching his friends gradually disappear, Sejun Park sighed, knowing that it was now his turn to prepare his own matters. Seeing the farmer's serious expression, Administrator Aileen asked if he was worried about the farm. Sejun Park admitted that he was always uneasy with each arrival of the blue moon. Nearby, Black Bunny waved its hand, saying it was going to help its parents with work. Understanding Sejun Park's concerns, Aileen told him to trust his teammates, and smugly asked the farmer if he had ever seen her come out to subdue monsters during the blue moon. The administrator's words momentarily took Sejun Park back to his first month in the cave. However, Sejun Park was still worried, because each time the blue moon rose, the monsters would become incredibly ferocious. Even the adorable little rabbits, if they didn't hide in their rooms, couldn't avoid it. The destruction caused by 1003 to the farm a month ago also worried Sejun Park this time. Although he had already asked them to stay as far from the farm as possible, the situation still made him anxious when the blue moon arrived. Unable to guarantee that his method would be effective, Sejun Park shared all his worries with Aileen. In response, Aileen said that this time she would personally guard the farm herself. Sejun Park also realized that the black dragon he saw during the first blue moon must have been Aileen. With this realization, his spirits lifted, and Sejun Park said he trusted Aileen. Seeing this, Aileen beamed with joy, encouraging Sejun Park to continue planting vigorously, promising that the great black dragon, Aileen Pratani, would not let him down. After ending the conversation, Aileen stretched a bit and then placed her hand on the door, pushing it open. Aileen slowly walked outside. She had been in the library left by her grandfather for too long. Soon, Aileen reached the top of the administrator's space. It turns out she was on a huge floating island, which also had a black tower where Aileen was residing. This floating island was located in the sky of the 99th floor of the black tower. Feeling the breeze passing over her body, Aileen felt very comfortable. She hadn't been out in a long time and was now preparing for the arrival of the blue moon. She slowly reached out to open a panel, and now it was her turn to protect Sejun Park and the others. The next second, many information bars appeared in front of Aileen, and this time, the great black dragon Aileen would take action personally. As time passed, the rabbit family had mostly entered their cabin. Sejun Park was saving the fire kindling to make cooking easier the next morning. After securing it, he suddenly heard a noise nearby. It turned out that the little cat was hugging the rabbit babies and crying loudly, moved by the thought of the little rabbits he had cared for growing up. Seeing this, Sejun Park approached and told the little cat to quickly get back into the bag, as the blue moon was about to arrive. Just as Teo was about to close the bag, Sejun Park urgently called out to him, then handed over another cocoon of the poisonous honeybee queen. This was given to Sejun Park by the original queen honeybee that morning. Recently, the bee swarm had grown much stronger, and the emergence of new queen honeybee cocoons was inevitable. Hearing this, the little cat gladly accepted it, and Teo indicated that he would, like last time, keep the cocoon in his soft fur. Meanwhile, the sky was gradually darkening, and the blue moon was about to cover the still unset sun. When night fully fell, the area near the cave became instantly quiet, but only in the cave itself. The rabbit babies were roaring. Sejun Park was sitting in front of the little rabbits, and although he had seen it once before, he could not get used to this. Then, the cries of many monsters came from outside, which surprised Sejun Park. Had Aileen not set out yet? But he had only walked a few steps when he realized that the rabbit babies were looking at him fiercely. They should have turned into white rabbits under the blue moon, but for some reason, it hadn't happened yet, and they had become even more ferocious. Watching the little rabbits hissing at him, Sejun Park thought about calling out to wake them up, but to his surprise, the rabbit babies suddenly rushed towards him. Just when Sejun Park thought he was going to be scratched, a dragon's roar suddenly came from the sky, and the little rabbits calmed down. Looking up at the huge dragon shadow in the sky, Sejun Park was very happy. Aileen had finally arrived. Simultaneously, the farm outside the cave also welcomed its first uninvited guest. This was a branch monster from the 99th floor, eyeing the farm ahead under the influence of the blue moon. But suddenly, it noticed the situation in the sky, only to see a huge black dragon flying close above the branch monster. Under Eileen's pressure, the monster regained its senses and quickly fled the area. But in the next second, the huge body of the black dragon became much more blurred. It turned out that this was not Eileen's real body. Since she could not leave the administrator's space, Aileen used a magical artifact left by her grandfather to simulate her adult illusion during the blue moon. That means Aileen can protect the farm remotely, but the downside is that the illusion gradually disappears as it nears the ground. What excited Aileen the most was that after this, Sejun Park's eyes must have been filled with the imposing image of herself. Next, Aileen would continue to control the illusion to fly until the blue moon ended. After the appearance of the black dragon, the previously ferocious monsters had become much quieter. Just then, the little rabbits behind Sejun Park finally began to evolve. When the rainbow-like light dissipated, the originally yellow little rabbits had transformed into white farmer rabbits. Watching the transformed children, Sejun Park was instantly overjoyed and immediately hugged 3 of the 6 little rabbits in his arms. Seeing this, the little rabbits were also curious, wondering what was going on with their uncle Sejun. Soon, a blue light emanated from behind Sejun Park. Looking around, some of the crops under the moonlight had already taken on the energy of the blue moon. Seeing this, both Sejun Park and the little rabbits were very happy. Next, it was time for them to harvest the blue moon crops. Before long, wisps of fog began to rise slowly in the cave. Sejun Park and the others were now cooking food over a fire. Once all the food was cooked, he placed it on large plates. The harvest of blue moon crops included sweet potatoes and potatoes. As always, blue moon cherry tomatoes. To reward Aileen for her hard work, Sejun Park brought the cooked blue moon food to her. Receiving the food, Aileen thanked the farmer and suggested that she should protect them during the next blue moon as well. Aileen was comfortably lying on the couch. Controlling the illusion today had indeed tired her out, but fortunately, the results were worth it. Holding a blue moon sweet potato, Aileen was eager to see if it could keep her dragon heart beating. She slowly put the small sweet potato into her mouth, and soon she heard the sound of the dragon heart again. And unlike before, this time Aileen could feel a steady flow of magical power inside her body. Before she could rejoice, the black tower issued a prompt. It indicated that a hidden dish called honey potato had reappeared in the black tower. Realizing something, Aileen thought it matched what she had guessed. This hidden dish was precisely caused by Sejun Park pouring honey on the blue moon potatoes. Seeing this, Aileen in the administrator's space was quite infuriated because Sejun Park had given her potatoes without honey. Looking at the new prompt, she immediately thought of a good way to obtain the honey potato. After confirming the special job skill she would give to Sejun Park, Aileen couldn't help but marvel that this was indeed a perfect reward for the farmer. Meanwhile, in the cave, Sejun Park's culinary creation was complete. The honey potato infused with the essence of the blue moon could permanently increase mana by 0.3. With the first bite, Sejun Park wanted the little rabbits to eat first. Just as the other little rabbits were preparing to grab some food, one of the little rabbits quickly intervened. It stated that their dad had said before that the blue moon crops should be given to Uncle Sejun to eat because Uncle Sejun was very weak. Upon hearing this, the relief in Sejun Park's heart died completely. Persuaded by the little rabbits, Sejun Park tearfully ate the blue moon honey potato. The potato coated in honey had an even finer texture. Just as he was savoring the delicious taste, the message panel appeared again, clearly displaying Sejun Park had caused the tower's hidden honey potato to reappear, which surprised him. Soon after, Aileen sent a new mission to serve the tower's administrator with honey potatoes. The reward was a special job skill, and if he refused, the administrator who only ate the blue moon potato would be very upset. Seeing this, Sejun Park hurriedly explained that he had merely sprinkled honey on the potatoes. Thinking about the possibility of gaining a new skill, Sejun Park accepted the mission. After confirming with Aileen that ordinary potatoes were also acceptable, he started the preparation. The process was very simple, and in just a minute, the new mission was completed. The skill rewarded by this mission was called cooking, which could enhance the taste of dishes made with tower ingredients, and the effects would also increase accordingly. Seeing the effects of this special skill, Sejun Park was quite shocked because it also recorded a recipe, precisely the honey potato he had just made. However, he was still very satisfied with this skill. Next, he called the little rabbits to help make breakfast for the other companions. And today, Sejun Park's 8th blue moon since arriving at the Black Tower finally came to an end. The blue moon on the 99th floor had disappeared, and the branch monster chased chased away by aliens slowly returned to the forest in the west, unaware of the unwelcome guests on its way home. Suddenly, the branch monster was tripped by a root. It collapsed to the ground, the poor monster thinking it had run out of energy. But then, a giant tree claw suddenly appeared above its head. By the time the branch monster noticed, it was already firmly grasped by the head, and countless branches wildly spread out. The powerless branch monster was mercilessly devoured, and the attacking monster was a corrupted ent. The corrupted ent slowly emerged from the shadows, then stared fixedly at the desolate lands beyond the forest, motivated by another forest on the far side that it and its companions yearned to reach. Meanwhile, as Sejun Park was tasting the food, a new sprout quietly emerged from a pile of charred crops behind him. Meanwhile, at the 85th floor of the Black Tower, old Silver Wolf Elka successfully brought food back to the tribe. The children who received the food were very thankful to the tribal chief. Seeing Elka about to leave, his wife seemed reluctant to let him go, but now that the blue moon had ended, Elka had to return. Hearing his wife's request to see the children before he left, old Silver Wolf gently told her that he served the great black dragon, so he could not afford to delay. Casually adjusting his cloak, Elka left for the 99th floor with 2 wolves. After some time, in the peddler village, there were several figures frantically running, which were 3 gray little rabbits apparently being chased. The slightly lagging little gray rabbit noticed the situation behind and was about to call its brother. However, a ferocious fox had already reached the side of the little gray rabbit, and then it was struck by the fox's sharp claws, falling to the ground the next second. The 2 little gray rabbits in front stopped when they saw this, but what they didn't realize was that another fox had already blocked their path. By the time the little gray rabbits turned their heads, they inevitably fell into the clutches of the predator. Their pained cries echoed through the village corridor, attracting old Silver Wolf Elka as well. Now, the little gray rabbit was firmly caught, and the fox was complaining that it had been running many floors to catch these slaves who had escaped from the farm. Next, the foxes prepared to eat one of the little gray rabbits, as no one would care if one less escaped slave was missing. Just as the ferocious fox was about to bite down, it was suddenly struck on the head by a giant claw. It turned out that Elka had intervened to save the poor little gray rabbit. Slowly catching the little gray rabbit, old Silver Wolf glared at the foxes in front. At this moment, the foxes recognized Elka and did not understand why he interfered. If this incident were reported to Greed, it would surely bring disaster to the Silver Wolf clan. But now, Elka was not afraid of the wild boar, instead telling the few foxes to scram before his teeth bite the back of their necks. Faced with the menacing Silver Wolf, the foxes had no choice but to leave dejectedly. Elki looked at the chief for what he did. For this, Elka could only apologize. He had acted subconsciously once more. Elka believed they should take the little gray rabbits back. If they stayed here, they might be captured by the foxes. Looking at the 3 little gray rabbits trembling in fear, old Silver Wolf sighed and decided to take them back to the cave. Perhaps they could be of some help to the great black dragon. Before long, it was noon, and Sejun Park was very happy. He said he had some important news to share, which was that after eating the crops from this blue moon, he had successfully increased his mana to 10 points. Hearing this, his friends all fell silent, thinking it was going to be something significant. The little cat even asked outright, was it something to brag about? To this, the farmer quickly took out the insides of the giant eel, as Sejun Park had now reached the mana requirement to use it. Eating it would grant him a new skill, but Teo was not interested at all. It yawned and then said it wanted to go back to sleep. However, Sejun Park insisted on keeping Teo there to watch him acquire the skill. After eating it, it wasn't as bad as he had imagined. It even had a bit of an orange tang to it. Soon after, the message panel indicated that Sejun Park had used the insides of the giant eel and successfully learned the skill Rain and Thunder. Unlike obtaining skills through missions, this time it was shown as learned. The Rain and Thunder skill had 3 different effects, but unfortunately, due to his limited magic power, Sejun Park could only use it to create dark clouds. Make it rain and throw thunder were currently locked for his safety. After reading all the descriptions, Sejun Park was dumbfounded. If he couldn't use rain or thunder, then the skill was almost useless. However, he still wanted to try it and immediately waved his hand to create dark clouds. Quickly, in front of Sejun Park, some gases began to gather, and in the blink of an eye, they turned into a cloud. But because Sejun Park's mana was so weak, the cloud was pitifully small. The little rabbits couldn't bear to discourage Sejun Park, so they all went back to work. As for the little cat, it comforted him, saying that although it was weak, Sejun Park was still their president. Only Bae was happy for its dad, thinking the skill was cool because it could block the sun, and Bae believed that the cloud would definitely get bigger in the future. Hearing the little bear's consolation, Sejun Park felt much happier. Even Teo somewhat agreed, and it gestured for Sejun Park to move the cloud over to provide some shade. Just then, Elka and the others returned, but soon Sejun Park noticed that beneath old Silver Wolf were 3 little gray rabbits. Immediately, Sejun Park approached and asked who they were. The little gray rabbits, very frightened, begged not to be eaten. Seeing that they were covered in wounds, Sejun Park felt very distressed. Sejun Park realized the little gray rabbits must have gone through something, so he turned to ask the silver wolves, but just as Elka was about to recount what had happened earlier, Mrs. Rabbit was so shocked that her farming scissors dropped to the ground. Looking at Mr. Rabbit and Mrs. Rabbit, Sejun Park voiced his confusion. Mr. Rabbit finally spoke up, unable to believe that the little gray rabbits were still alive. One of the little gray rabbits was especially excited, as it turned out that Mr. Rabbit was their uncle. The companions were somewhat confused about what was happening, while the little rabbits were already hugging each other, unable to hold back their tears after such a long separation. Having not eaten for a long time, upon seeing many fresh delicacies, they couldn't help but feast heartily. Sejun Park and his companions did not disturb them, knowing well that the little gray rabbits must be terribly hungry. When one of the little gray rabbits choked accidentally, Mrs. Rabbit quickly handed over some water, while Sejun Park told them to eat slowly. Hearing the little gray rabbits thank him but addressing him as the Great Black Dragon, Sejun Park said they should just call him Sejun in the future, and he told Elka the same. Now that everyone is companions and family, there is no need to call him the Great Black Dragon anymore. At Sejun Park's request, the old silver wolf also changed his way of addressing. Sejun Park began observing the little gray rabbits, and timely messages indicated that they were Gray Rabbit Artist, Gray Rabbit Wood Craftsman, and one was Gray Rabbit Architect. After eating, the little gray rabbits shared their experiences of escaping from a foreign land, revealing that they all had technical skills. Sejun Park then curiously asked them which floor they had come from. When the gray rabbits said it was the 55th floor, Mr. Rabbit was greatly surprised, as he hadn't expected his nephews had been on the 55th floor all along. Mr. Rabbit then excitedly asked if the Rabbit King, Queen, and Princess were still there, and what about the monsters that attacked the kingdom. Seeing Mr. Rabbit shake the little gray rabbits until they were dizzy, Sejun Park and Mrs. Rabbit quickly intervened. Hearing Sejun Park ask what he had just said, Mr. Rabbit slowly began to tell a story. It turned out that a long time ago, the 55th floor was where the rabbits lived, in a place called the Red Ribbon Kingdom. Seeing Mr. Rabbit quite despondent, Sejun Park quickly asked about the current state of the kingdom. Mr. Rabbit stated that about several decades ago, the Red Ribbon Kingdom had been destroyed. Once, the Red Ribbon Kingdom was a peaceful and beautiful place where rabbits lived happily. Some little rabbits chose to farm diligently, while others were responsible for creating various crafts, all contributing their strength to maintain a peaceful life. But one day, shadows of destruction suddenly appeared and consumed the Red Ribbon Kingdom. The battling rabbits fought back desperately while also trying to protect their people as they fled. Unfortunately, their resistance was ineffective, and the Red Ribbon Kingdom was quickly and utterly destroyed, and the royal family also disappeared. With the loss of their king's leadership, the little rabbits, in order to avoid the monsters, had to scatter and flee. Mr. Rabbit and Mrs. Rabbit also escaped from the 55th floor, and after many difficulties, they finally arrived at the cave. Now, Sejun Park finally understood why harmless little rabbits appeared on the monster-filled 99th floor. Mr. Rabbit continued, saying they had thought the 55th floor had been destroyed by the monsters, not realizing that some still remained there. The little gray rabbits mentioned that they and their families had not managed to leave through the passage and had to hide from the monsters, but then those monsters suddenly disappeared. However, when they ventured out, they found other dangers in the devastated wasteland. Elka added to the conversation, slowly mentioning a name called Greed. After the Red Ribbon Kingdom was destroyed by monsters, Greed led a massive wild boar tribe to occupy the now ownerless 55th floor, declaring himself the great landlord. What followed was the endless exploitation of the little rabbits by the wild boars, and the land of the Red Ribbon Kingdom became a large farm that only produced food. The three little gray rabbits were at their limit and finally risked everything to escape from the farm. Sejun Park felt very sorry for the gray rabbits' plight and immediately had Black Warrior Bunny lead them to rest. Under the escort of the little rabbits, they headed into the cave. At this time, Sejun Park asked Elka, was the straw hat also something Greed was looking for? Greed is a wealthy man who exerts considerable influence over the tower through food. However, I despise that wild boar. Working for Greed disgusts me. Whenever he has the chance, he will ruthlessly exploit the residents. Teo mentioned that it also knew Greed's name because food circulates through the merchants around the tower, and most of that food comes from Greed's farm. Sejun Park then asked if they might be pursued to the 99th floor. Elka reassured him, because the 99th floor is very dangerous, so no matter how much money is spent, those cowardly mercenaries would not dare to come here. Hearing the Silver Wolf's words, Sejun Park finally breathed a sigh of relief. Meanwhile, in Greed's castle on the 55th floor, the wild boar Greed was very angry because the foxes told him that the little gray rabbits had successfully escaped with the help of Silver Wolf Elka. However, after some thought, Greed didn't care, believing that when the food runs out, Elka would surely come back begging. More importantly, they had another major issue, rejecting the merchants who came for food, thus restricting the circulation of food. Although the major associations raised issues, but it is still within their control. Another opportunity is coming, just like how he took control of the 55th floor several decades ago. But this time, his goal is to control the entire Black Tower. Time slowly moved to the next day, and Sejun Park, as usual, called the little cat to wake up. But when Sejun Park went to wash his face, he found that a wash basin had appeared by the pond, complete with a ladle, which excited him greatly. Immediately, Sejun Park started to wash his hair, guessing that all these were likely done by the gray rabbits. After washing his hair, Teo suddenly called Sejun Park over. In front of them, not only had a furnace appeared, but also a sitting table and eating utensils, all of which Sejun Park had needed. The little cat mentioned that Pimik, Pibik, and Pirik had made him a bowl with their own paw prints on it. It turns out the 3 little gray rabbits had their own names, and to show their gratitude, they had made furniture for their fellow farm companions. Sickle Bunny received a gift from Gray Rabbit Artist. Hearing Sejun Park call them, the little gray rabbits turned back to greet him, and then they thanked Sejun Park again, explaining that they made these items to help as much as possible. As for Sejun Park, he suddenly took the little hand of the architecture gray rabbit and asked if they needed a job. Listening to Sejun Park's words, the little gray rabbits were momentarily taken aback. After receiving their joyful consent, the cave farm officially welcomed new companions. Mr. Rabbit and his family all warmly welcomed the little gray rabbits. With 3 such skilled technicians, Sejun Park believed the farm would become more and more prosperous. The little gray rabbits were even more confident about this. Next, Sejun Park wanted to ask them to first build some rabbit dens, not only for the little gray rabbits, but also because the newly grown little white rabbits needed their own homes too. Although they had been trying hard to build houses, they seemed to be having some difficulties. The gray rabbit architect immediately agreed, as this was its area of expertise. Seeing this, the little cat also wanted a mobile house, and the gray rabbits said they could make a cat tower for Teo to live in. Looking towards where Sejun Park slept, Sejun Nim, "Don't you have a home?" Hearing Sejun Park reply that he didn't, the little gray rabbit wanted to build him a house. However, there was no longer enough space in the cave, but they could build outside for Sejun Park, where materials were also very accessible. Hearing this, Sejun Park was instantly excited, as it seemed he would soon have his own house. Recently, with a lot of help from the Minotaurs, much of the wasteland had been reclaimed. Thus, Sejun Park asked what materials were needed. The gray rabbit architect suggested that sand or clay suitable for making bricks would be best. Hearing this, Sejun Park and Teo immediately thought of a place, and they then headed to the barren lands, because the territory of the Minotaur family just happened to have high-quality clay and sand. After the gray rabbit architect inspected it, he confirmed that this clay was very suitable for making bricks. The Ox King was puzzled about what Sejun Park was doing with the clay, as it was one of their current food sources. Sejun Park told the Ox King that this was a new deal. Next, the little gray rabbit would teach the Minotaurs to make bricks, and the bricks could be exchanged with his farm for green onions. Upon hearing this, the Ox King immediately ordered his people to stop eating the clay, as it was all to be saved for making bricks. Sometime later, the companions outside the cave were each busy with their tasks. Mother Crimson Grizzly Bear and the little bear were responsible for gathering wood. The Minotaurs continued to till the land as usual. The little rabbits loosened and cultivated the soil, and Mr. Rabbit and the others with watering cans took up the task of watering the crops. When the little bear took breaks, it would spar with Old Silver Wolf. Their competitions were quite spectacular, and Sejun Park cheered them on from the sidelines. After the competition, he rewarded the little bear with a bottle of honey, and Elka, who had never eaten it before, was also tempted. Seeing this, Sejun Park naturally did not forget him and immediately took out a bottle for Elka. Watching Sejun Park, Old Silver Wolf seemed somewhat taken aback, having never expected to obtain delicacies so easily. After resting, Sejun Park went to help his companions with their work. He was harvesting sun pumpkin sweet potatoes, which amounted to exactly 15 from one plant. After gathering them, Sejun Park's skills were also upgraded, and he was very pleased with these solar sweet potatoes. However, after working on the farm for a while, Sejun Park felt very hot, so he summoned dark clouds to shade himself from the sun. Wiping his sweat, he felt very comfortable. Sejun Park looked at the piled up green onions and thought it might be time to build a sturdy warehouse outside. Just then, Teo came outside and greeted Sejun Park. Sejun Park wanted to know when the little cat planned to go down to sell crops again. This time, he was prepared to have Teo take some detoxifying green onions down, as adventurers might need them. More importantly, they had planted too much recently, and aside from what was prepared for the Minotaurs, they simply couldn't store anymore. Since that was the case, it agreed to take 100 green onions down to try selling them. Although doubtful about the sales volume of green onions, the little cat always trusted Sejun Park's decisions, as he had never been wrong. However, as a cat, Teo found the smell of green onions was not good. Just before finishing packing, Sejun Park called it to eat. Worrying that its fish might be eaten, the little cat instantly became anxious, which caused Teo to unintentionally pack some solar sweet potatoes as well. After packing everything, the little cat hurried to get its roasted fish. Meanwhile, on the 67th floor of the Black Tower, a large frog seemed to have spotted prey, but before it could strike, it was hit by an arrow from behind. Above the frog, a monster also saw it as prey. This was one of the lizard men belonging to the 67th floor. Quickly hopping beside the frog, it was about to enjoy its meal when suddenly, a red figure swooped in. This was a strange red locust, which the lizard man caught and ate immediately, surprised by its taste. Since the lizard man had apparently never seen this kind of creature before, it quickly sensed something was amiss in its surroundings. Looking up, the lizard man was shocked because in front of it was an endless swarm of red locusts. They swarmed madly towards the lizard man on the ground, accompanied by many groups of locusts, a scene reminiscent of the destruction of the rabbit kingdom. Facing so many red locusts, the lizard man was unable to fend them off, and in just a moment, it was completely overwhelmed by the swarm. When the locusts left, all that remained on the ground was the lizardman's equipment. On the other side, in the 99th floor's administrator space, Eileen's crystal ball was ringing frantically. The Black Tower's alert system was so noisy that she could hardly sleep, leaving the Black Dragon with no choice but to get up. Aileen then placed her hand on the crystal ball, wanting to see what exactly was happening, but in the next second, countless alerts from the Black Tower kept popping up. It turned out that the 67th floor was being invaded by billions of locusts. The name red locusts immediately drained Aileen of all composure. This species had invaded the Black Tower about 100 years ago, and after several decades, the 55th floor had been devoured. It was her grandfather, Kaiser, who had acted then, successfully preventing the destruction of the 55th floor. So Aileen hurriedly used her administrator's authority to try to connect to the tower's external communications, but she discovered that she couldn't send the message out because her current abilities were insufficient to open the channel connected to the outside. However, the next notification from the Black Tower made her even more anxious. In just a short time, 0.01% of the 67th floor had already been devastated, and the rate of devastation was still increasing. For a moment, Aileen was stunned, constantly thinking of a solution. As for Sejun Park and his companions, they were preparing today's food, chopping the eel caught by Black Warrior Bunny into pieces, then frying it in eel oil, the aroma of which was making the little cat uncontrollably drool. At this moment, Sickle Bunny brought over the chopped sweet potatoes, and Sweet Potato's uncle, "What new dish are we making? Something even tastier than honey potatoes." Then he asked his companions if they had heard of candied sweet potatoes. Following that, Sejun Park started to make it. After heating the collected eel oil, he put the sweet potatoes in, carefully turning them with chopsticks to fry the surface until crispy. Next, he added honey to fry together. In no time, Sejun Park's version of simple candied sweet potatoes was ready. To his surprise, this dish was also included in the cookbook. Watching the fragrant candied sweet potatoes, both Black Warrior Bunny and Teo were drooling with desire. The little cat quickly took the opportunity while Sejun Park was busy to eat the fried fish. Although this batch of fried fish was not acknowledged in the cookbook, Teo was eager to eat it. Recently, Sejun Park had developed an interest in seeing which foods could trigger the cookbook. A large feast was prepared, and Sejun Park and his companions gathered around. For the Minotaurs, the most comfortable part of every day was mealtime after work. The Silver Wolves also ate happily, and with everyone's effort, not a bit of food was left. The little cat even mentioned that it couldn't eat another bite. After resting for a while, Teo gathered the Silver Wolves. Today, they were going down to sell goods. However, the little cat suddenly noticed the food beside Sejun Park, which was left for Aileen because there had been no response when he called her earlier. Teo mentioned that she might still be sleeping. Sejun Park also hoped that was the case, hoping nothing had happened to Aileen. Meanwhile, in the Black Tower's administrator space, Aileen was still fixing the communication system, but the recently restored Dragonheart was still not strong enough to let her contact her kin outside, which made Aileen feel very guilty, but she could not think of a solution for the moment. Aileen was so anxious because the 67th floor was now in dire straits. At the same time, in the central management headquarters, leaders from various major associations were gathered. Leading them were Mason from the Peddlers Association, Hannibal from the Free Mercenary Association, and Iona from the Magician Association, each belonging to the fox, tiger, and hamster species respectively. Little Fox Jairus was also in the conference room, somewhat surprised, as it was her first time seeing the president of the Magicians Association. She did not know what had happened to bring all the leaders of the major organizations together. Mason from the Peddlers Association spoke first. He reported that according to the information they had, the red locusts had already consumed a lot on the 67th floor. Although they had sent people to defend, there had been no improvement in the situation. Hannibal then asked about the passageways, concerned that if they were not controlled in time, the locusts might invade other towers. Mason assured him that the red locusts were outsiders and could not enter the passageways. What really worried him was the waypoints, where the locusts could potentially invade other floors. Hannibal expressed that if the locusts reached the floors above, the consequences would be unimaginable. The leaders of the various organizations were instantly anxious because one of the Black Tower's 5 major granaries was above the 67th floor. If the granary was destroyed, a great famine would come again. Some new executives appeared puzzled when a voice sounded, mentioning the once flourishing Red Ribbon Kingdom on the 55th floor. The voice belonged to Iona, the leader of the Magicians Association. It turns out that the Red Ribbon Kingdom was previously the largest food hub, which was later devoured by red locusts, leading to the previous era of Great Famine. At this point, Iona couldn't help saying that if it weren't for that wild boar seizing the opportunity. But before he could continue, Mason quickly interjected, "Please calm down. Greed is not a bad person." Iona scoffed at Mason's words, retorting coldly, "A good person? Are you referring to the exploitation of the rabbit tribe and then monopolizing the food distribution lines?" Upon hearing this, Hannibal suddenly became angry, thinking Iona's words were too harsh. In the subsequent discussion, all the leaders were very anxious about why the Great Black Dragon had not yet come out to protect the Black Tower. The direction of the discussion frustrated Iona, so she stood up and slowly began to recount the history of the Black Tower. Over the past 1,000 years, there have been several invasions by red locusts. Under the protection of the Great Black Dragon, the Black Tower and its inhabitants have always been safe. The Black Dragon has always quickly driven away the outsiders, but in the last locust invasion, for some unknown reason, the Black Dragon did not act swiftly. It was only when nearly half of the 55th floor was destroyed that the locusts were successfully eradicated. At that time, most of the granaries were concentrated in the Red Ribbon Kingdom, so the kingdom's destruction led to a food shortage throughout the Black Tower. We must all do our best to protect the Black Tower before the Black Dragon arrives, or the order of the tower will once again collapse. This time, I will represent the Magicians Association and dispatch 200 war mages to resist the invaders. She wanted to know if the leaders of the other organizations were willing to join together. On the other side, when Elka went to the 38th floor, he first made a trip back to the 85th floor. Teo did not refuse, but he reminded them not to stay too late. At that moment, several little silver wolves approached the little cat, wanting to know if Teo really was the Great Black Dragon. The little cat, always fond of showing off, certainly wouldn't miss the opportunity. Teo claimed that he sort of was. He is a vital underling of the Black Dragon, the intermediate peddler Teo. As soon as he said this, as expected, it won the admiration of the little silver wolves, who then started chanting the little cat's name. After being praised, Teo was instantly delighted, and then tossed sticks of roasted fish to the little silver wolves. But just as he was about to continue, he suddenly felt something different, slowly pulled it out, and it was Sejun Park's solar sweet potato. This greatly shocked Teo. He couldn't understand why it was in his own backpack. Hearing this, Elka asked the little cat what had happened, seeing which, Teo quickly brushed it off, not wanting Sejun Park to find out, and then urged Elka to hurry off. Now the only thought in the little cat's mind was to destroy the evidence, so Teo took the 3 silver wolves and rushed to the 38th floor. On the other side, in the cave farm, Sejun Park was anxiously searching because his harvested solar sweet potatoes had disappeared. Even after turning over all the green onions, Sejun Park still could not see any trace of the sweet potatoes. After thinking it over, he quickly suspected it might be Teo's doing. Following this thought, Sejun Park confirmed it because the green onions and sweet potatoes were stored together, so the little cat must have accidentally took them. Just as Sejun Park was considering how to punish Teo, a message suddenly came through indicating that the seed store had reopened. This time, for random crop seeds were offered, and the prices of previous seeds had significantly dropped. However, a seed called the flame bean appeared, a crop Sejun Park had never heard of, and one seed cost 5 dungeon coins, although he now had enough money. But once the flame bean seeds are purchased, no other seeds can be bought, because the seed store only allows a 5 dungeon coin expenditure. With the increase in farm rabbits, Sejun Park decided not to risk choosing the flame beans and instead bought all the carrot, chongyang pepper, and strawberry seeds, which are currently the best choice. Despite the many plants to be grown next, the thought of eating chongyang peppers and strawberries instantly filled Sejun Park with energy. After getting a large number of carrot seeds, he shared this news with Mr. Rabbit, who would then take on the task of planting the carrots. As for Sejun Park, he planned to plant the other seeds as well. A few days later, in the real world, Master Taijun, with the help of the magic cherry tomatoes, went outside to relax. It had been a very long time since he last saw the outside scenery. However, the man behind him, his disciple Sihyuk, reminded him to be wary of the curse of the flame spreading, and then suggested that they return inside where it's safe. But Taijun was also curious about something, whether Dongshik was still on the 38th floor, as he hadn't seen him for many days. Hearing this, Sihyuk spoke about the current situation on the 38th floor. Due to the deadly poisonous gas of the spider swarm, Dongshik and his team faced extreme difficulties in their campaign. Without sufficient antidote, it was impossible to approach the spider's nest. Moreover, it was difficult to find an alchemist capable of producing antidotes, so the guild's campaign had not progressed. Understanding the situation, Taijun asked about Sejun Park's family, as during Dongshik's absence, it was Sihyuk who was currently responsible for guarding the family. Their bodyguards escort and monitor with minimal exposure to the lives of Sejun Park's family. The only incident was when someone from a foreign association magician tried to approach Sejun Park's younger brother, but they were decisively rejected in the end. Hearing that all was well, Taejun was even happier, but the next second, his curse acted up, so he quickly took out a magic cherry tomato and slowly ate it, after which his body gradually recovered. The presence of the magic cherry tomato made it much easier for Taejun to counter the curse. This item could help many people, so he firmly believed that Sejun Park was a rare talent for the country. After relaxing, Taejun bid farewell to his disciple and returned to his room. Sehyuk believed that one day his master's flame curse would be resolved, and he and Dongshik would continue searching. As for Dongshik, he was currently in battle, facing many poisonous spiders. Seeing that the spiders were endless, Dongshik was quite troubled. Helplessly, he informed his companions to retreat so that they can reorganize and try again. But just then, a team member urgently warned Dongshik as an attack from a spider above him was about to hit him. Fortunately, at the critical moment, Suha intervened just in time to block the attack for Dongshik. However, in the haste, she was accidentally scratched on the cheek by a spider claw. She managed to repel the spider with full force. Then she quickly drew her long sword from her waist and fiercely stabbed it into the mouth of the poisonous spider. The fatally wounded spider died on the spot, but the poisoned Suha was already struggling to hold on. Dongshik urgently asked the team's magician to use healing magic, but it did not work well, only temporarily slowing the spread of the poison. This made Dongshik very anxious because all the antidotes they had brought were used up, and it was too late to take Suha to find an alchemist. Just as Dongshik was pondering what to do, the little cat Teo had already arrived behind him and asked him why he was here, as the place was still some distance from the trading place. However, before Dongshik could reply, Teo noticed his subordinate Suha. The little cat quickly went over to ask why she was lying down, and a nearby team member explained that Suha was poisoned. Hearing this, the little cat immediately became very worried and told her to rest well. Dongshik quickly asked if there was an alchemist nearby selling antidotes, but after thinking for a moment, Teo said there were none nearby. However, the little cat soon thought of a possible solution, so Teo hurriedly searched his backpack and quickly took out the detoxifying green onions. Hearing the little cat's words, Dongshik was curious about what the green onions could do, but after examining the information panel in his hands, he immediately realized it can detoxify the spider's poison and quickly handed it to Suha to eat. Slowly eating a piece of the green onions, Suha's condition began to improve. The next second, the poison in Suha's body immediately disappeared, and even her wounds healed quickly, which she found incredible. Beside her, Teo and Dongshik also finally breathed a sigh of relief. After being rescued, Suha hugged the little cat, thanking Teo for his help, confirming to herself that Teo was indeed the best cat in her heart. However, after the incident, the money-minded little cat promptly set a price of 5 dungeon coins, while mentioning that this was a special discount available only to its subordinates. Dongshik was curious about where the green onions came from, and Teo told him that they were a new crop brought for sale. The little cat's words surprised everyone present, as the green onions could quickly eliminate the E+ grade poisons. With the detoxifying green onions, Dongshik believed that they could soon conquer the poisonous spiders on the 38th floor. His look at Teo became even more excited, which made the little cat somewhat puzzled, so he quickly asked Teo how many green onions he had brought. Hearing that there were a full 100, Dongshik did not hesitate to say he would buy them all. Just then, discordant voices came from behind them. Seeing that it was people from other guilds, Dongshik was quite surprised. They also criticized him for secretly buying the crops without others knowing. Dongshik realized that these people arrived so quickly because they were watching over the Phoenix Guild, and that they were going to interfere with the raid led by Dongshik. At that moment, a serious-looking man told the little cat that if it showed preferential treatment to one guild, it would face complaints from others. You will lose many customers. Dongshik understood that this was nonsense because the magic cherry tomatoes were extremely popular, and no matter what Teo did, there would always be people eager to buy. But with many people watching, fairness and reputation were crucial for a peddler. Considering the issue of fairness, the little cat decided to hold an auction as before. Hearing this, the others also agreed. At the auction, Teo would sell the magic cherry tomatoes first, and only then would the detoxifying green onions be up for sale. The little cat brought 6,000 C-grade magic cherry tomatoes this time, with each batch starting from 500 pieces for auction. Its announcement caused a stir among the crowd, as the grade of the magic cherry tomatoes was one level higher than the D-grade ones sold at high prices outside the tower last time. They knew well that the C-grade would be even more popular. The first bidder turned out to be a member of Dongshik's guild. The allure of C-grade tomatoes made it hard for him to restrain himself. After a brief silence, everyone began to actively participate in the bidding. In just 1 minute, a member of Dongshik's guild had already bid 600 dungeon coins. After a while, the auction of the magic cherry tomatoes ended. Next, Teo was going to sell detoxifying green onions, with 100 in total, auctioned in batches of 10 with a starting price of 100 dungeon coins. This time Dongshik was the first to bid, and observing guilds around him naturally did not want to give in. Fortunately, after Dongshik Dongshik bid 155 dungeon coins. He finally successfully bid for a batch of detoxifying green onions. Teo quickly completed the transaction, which made Dongshik very happy. It seemed that as long as the bid reached the expected value, the little cat would decisively make the sale, so he thought of continuing to bid aggressively in the next round. But when Teo announced the start of the next round, the leading man immediately called out a higher price. The little cat naturally agreed without hesitation. In each subsequent round, before Dongshik could speak, the leading man would offer a higher price than the last. The little cat instantly agreed every time, which made Dongshik blush with embarrassment, but it was futile because the opponent was simply too extravagant. The continuously higher bids made the little cat overwhelmingly happy. Compared to Dongshik's vigorous bidding, other guilds were strategically capturing Teo's attention. Thus, by the end of the auction, Dongshik had only managed to buy 10 green onions. Looking at his dejected appearance, members of other guilds did not forget to mock him, saying they would wait for the Phoenix Guild at higher levels as they left. At this point, members of Dongshik's guild realized that they should not have been so impulsive to spend all their money on magic cherry tomatoes. But Dongshik reassured them. After the auction ended, Suha brought Teo to find Dongshik, and then they chatted in a secluded place as usual. The little cat and Dongshik learned about the current situation of Sejun Park's family, writing down all the information they got, and Dongshik also mentioned that members of the Korean Association were taking turns protecting Sejun Park's family. Then Teo remembered that Sejun Park wanted to reward Dongshik for protecting his family. He had prepared some gifts, including 200 magic cherry tomatoes and 50 detoxifying green onions. This made Dongshik very excited, as the detoxifying green onions were crucial for their raid plans. Now, the little cat also told Dongshik that any needed crops would be sold to him at a low price in the future as a reward for protecting the family. Hearing this, Dongshik was of course very willing. He would do anything to protect Sejun Park's family well. He thought today's conversation was over, but then the little cat stopped Dongshik as he was about to leave. It said that there was a secret item to be traded today, and this opportunity would only come once, then immediately asked Dongshik if he was interested. Teo's words made Dongshik stop. He was indeed attracted by the secret item. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the Minotaur were one by one bringing bricks to the outside of the cave, while some were building houses with the little gray rabbits. Watching the house take shape, Sejun Park and his friends were amazed. They hadn't expected that in just a few days, the exterior would be nearly complete. The gray rabbit architect stated that this was also thanks to the hard work of the Minotaurs, but the interior structure could only be completed by the three siblings, so that would take some time. Next, they needed to discuss the interior layout with Sejun Park. Subsequently, Sejun Park and the little rabbits went inside. Seeing this, the little bear also got curious, so it followed along with the little bee queen to the inside of the house. Sejun Park was sharing his ideas for arranging the furniture, but then he suddenly heard a noise from behind. Slowly turning around, he was startled because the door of the room was too small, making it impossible for the little bear to enter. Sejun Park quickly told the little bear not to come in, which confused the little bear. So, Sejun Park patiently explained, because you are too big, coming in now would collapse the house. Hearing this, the little bear stopped. Sejun Park still needed to inspect the house, so he asked the little bear to wait on the other side and eat some honey. But the longer the little bear watched from the side, the more uncomfortable it felt, because it also wanted to go inside and see Dad's house like the little rabbits. The Queen Honey Bear Jr. could only comfort the sad little bear. Unexpectedly, the little bear started crying, understanding that it was all because it was too large. If it could just shrink a bit, it could sleep with Dad. As the tears of the little bear dripped onto its paws, the next second, its body seemed to undergo a strange transformation. Meanwhile, Sejun Park was asking the little gray rabbit if they could use the green onions as a mattress on the bed, to which the little gray rabbit thought it would be too firm. But just then, Sejun Park heard the little bear calling him again. Immediately, a red creature pounced on him, the huge impact knocking Sejun Park right into a pile of green onions. Black Warrior Bunny and Gray Rabbit Architect were scared by this scene. Sejun Park was bewildered, not understanding what had just happened. Soon, he felt something licking his cheek, and standing on top of Sejun Park was surprisingly a red little bear. The little bear was now happily raising its paws because it had successfully shrunk. Looking at the joyous little bear saying it had shrunk, Sejun Park was taken aback, curious how the little bear did it, as small as when they first met. Fortunately, the message prompt explained that the little bear had now evolved into a crimson giant honey bear. Black Warrior Bunny patted the little bear's shoulder, liking its new look. Sejun Park then asked if the little bear could grow big again. Hearing this, the little bear tried hard, and indeed, it instantly reverted to its large form, startling Sejun Park and the others. But nearby, 1003 explained that wanting to become smaller was suppressing his growth, which commonly happens in young monsters afraid of becoming adults. Hearing this, Sejun Park's smile faded. At this moment, the little bear was also trying hard to control its shrinking. Then it pounced on Sejun Park, weakly saying, "Can I go to Dad's house now? I can hug you like Black Rabbit Hyung does." It was only only then that Sejun Park finally understood what the little bear wanted was the same affection as before. He then apologized to the little bear. "Dad didn't understand your feelings." Following that, Sejun Park picked up the little bear and said he would take it to see the house. Next up was checking the placement of the beds in the house. However, the little bear suddenly said it wanted to go back to the cave to play with the rabbit brothers, which reminded Sejun Park of bad memories. Black Warrior Bunny shook its head frantically, signaling Sejun Park to find a way to refuse, because otherwise, the stored food would suffer again. Meanwhile, on the 38th floor, the little cat had already taken out the secret item, which turned out to be the solar sweet potato it had unintentionally brought. Slowly checking the detailed information on the sweet potato, Dongshik was shocked because it clearly stated, "grants temporary flame resistance." This was closely related to his master, Han Taijun, Korea's legendary strongman and the first human to reach the 52nd floor. At that time, Taijun engaged in a battle with a flaming wild boar at the 52nd floor waypoint. After 3 days and nights of intense fighting, both sides sustained fatal injuries, resulting in a draw. Consequently, Taijun suffered from the curse of flames and could only delay its onset by injecting magic or lowering his body temperature. Since then, everyone knew that Han Taijun might retire, yet he alone persisted, refusing to give up. Looking at the sweet potato, Dongshik's heart filled with hope. With this, he could temporarily suppress his master's curse and then defeat the flaming wild boar to lift the curse of flames. Then the living legend of the Korea Awakened Association could return, and they had also gained plenty of detoxifying green onions. Dongshik was even more grateful to Teo, expressing that these were exactly what he needed. The little cat, on the other hand, secretly laughed, knowing that its mistake would go unnoticed. Quickly, Dongshik took out dungeon coins to complete the transaction. After bidding farewell to Teo, he happily returned to find his teammates. Seeing Dongshik bring out a large basket of green onions, everyone was amazed and guessed that they were obtained from the little cat. Dongshik told everyone that with these green onions, their chance to conquer the 38th floor had arrived. Hearing this, the team members were overjoyed, and without hesitation, they ate the detoxifying green onions and went to tackle the poisonous spiders. Without the poisonous gases affecting them, everyone's fighting spirit soared. After some time, in the 75th floor merchant market of the Black Tower, many natives were frightened by the scene ahead because a little cat was followed by 3 large silver wolves. Today had been another perfect sales day, and Teo was in a great mood. It decided to take its wolf subordinates for a big meal. While Elka and the others were excited, the little cat seemed to have noticed something, activating its treasure hunting ability once again. Soon, Teo found a stall and instantly took a liking to a bracelet on it. Just as it slapped its paw down, another paw landed on it at the same time. Seeing the little cat, who was a step ahead of her, Iona was somewhat surprised. Teo quickly adjusted his posture, ready for the upcoming conversation. Teo snatched the bracelet away, and, realizing that the Teo was an intermediate peddler, Iona was slightly surprised but still demanded that Teo hand over the bracelet because it wasn't something a little cat could have. Iona's words made Teo unhappy, so he told Iona to move along. Being called a little thing really angered the magician leader Iona. When Elka came over to ask what was happening, he was terrified upon seeing the hamster below because Iona was the archmage of destruction of the Black Tower. From that wand alone, Elka confirmed Iona's identity. After all, it was known as the Staff of Calamity, a legendary item in the Black Tower. Legend has it that with one wave of the wand, mountains would turn into flat land. With 2 waves, rivers would become seas. Iona was the true embodiment of destruction, and the old silver wolf hadn't expected to encounter her here. Iona was also puzzled, wondering if the little cat didn't recognize her. Originally, Iona wanted Teo to retract his words, but now, feeling very upset, Iona decided to make the little cat apologize with his life. Seeing this, Elka hurried forward to stop them, stating that Teo was a subordinate of the Great Black Dragon. Hearing this, Iona subsided her anger. She then asked about Elka's identity, and the old silver wolf respectfully introduced himself. Then Iona stated, if what was just said is false, pretending to be a subordinate of the Great Black Dragon would be enough for Elka and the others to pay with their lives. The old silver wolf swore there was absolutely no deceit, and Teo echoed this, stating that he truly was a subordinate of the Black Dragon. As for Iona, she demanded proof of their identity, and the best way was to take her to see the Great Black Dragon. However, the little cat didn't want to take Iona for free, which terrified Elka, turning his face pale as he hadn't expected Teo to be so bold. But the little cat was a peddler and wouldn't do anything without profit, so if Iona wanted to see the Great Black Dragon, she would have to pay for it. The old silver wolf had already been shocked by the little cat too many times today. Iona, on the other hand, found it amusing and couldn't help but laugh heartily. She liked the determined look in the little cat's eyes and asked what it needed. Hearing this, Teo said that he was buying things for the Black Dragon, and the accessories from earlier were among those items. Iona agreed to pay and generously added that if there was anything else Teo liked, he should feel free to ask. For Iona, seeing the Great Black Dragon was worth any cost. Inside, the little cat was overjoyed, not expecting to encounter such a pushover today. So, Teo led them to stroll through the merchant street, with the little hamster footing the bill. The little cat bought things extravagantly, like ordering 100 ordinary bottles, and even picked out gifts for the silver wolves. Seeing this, Iona was already a bit dumbfounded. The items were supposed to be necessities for the black dragon, yet the little cat was choosing things it liked. Helpless, Iona still agreed, hoping that the cat wasn't deceiving him. At that moment, Teo suddenly brought a wizard's hat and placed it on Iona's head, which fit perfectly. The little cat's gesture warmed Iona's heart, and while thanking him, Iona mentioned that wizards didn't actually need such hats. But the only response he got was the little cat urging him to pay. Having no choice, Iona asked about the price. Hearing that everything together cost 20 dungeon coins, she immediately took out the money to pay. However, Teo suddenly stopped the shopkeeper from taking the money, asking for a discount and wondering why Iona didn't negotiate the price. Such bold haggling was something the shopkeeper had never seen, but he still reduced the price by 3 dungeon coins. Surprisingly, the little cat insisted on further discounts until, after 3 rounds of bargaining, Teo was finally satisfied and left. On the way, the little cat thanked Iona for his generosity today. Iona was now very puzzled. She had expected Teo to ask for expensive items, yet it was just cheap knickknacks, and he even haggled to save money. Unable to understand, Iona chose to ask about the black dragon's location. Hearing Teo say it was on the 99th floor, she became even more confused. Iona asked, "Isn't it in the administrator's space?" The little cat didn't answer directly, but told her that she would find out when they arrived. Despite the uncertainty, Iona chose to believe him. Meanwhile, on the 38th floor, with the help of detoxifying green onions, Dongshik and his team had already dealt with the poisonous spiders, marking the successful conquest of the 38th floor by the Phoenix Guild. Looking at the glowing waypoint behind them, Dongshik eagerly stepped forward to check it, and the guild members were all very excited. After Dongshik touched the crystal, a message appeared, asking if they wanted to go to the 39th floor. Sometime later, at the Gagel's Tower Farming Project's headquarters on the 2nd floor, Michael also received the news that the Phoenix Guild had conquered the 38th floor. His subordinates reported that the rapid conquest was due to the new detoxifying green onions crop sold by the cat peddler. This made Michael even angrier, as he had invested a lot of money but hadn't even gotten a single magical cherry tomato. Now there was a new crop. Even as the vice president of Gagel, Michael knew that if the tomatoes didn't show results soon, he might face everyone's opposition. At that moment, a farm researcher rushed in, saying that something strange had happened on the farm. When Michael walked into his farm, he was dumbfounded because the tomatoes they had planted had turned into plants resembling man-eating flowers. Jenny thought it was a mutation caused by the injected growth hormone, and Michael couldn't understand why she hadn't destroyed this monster-like plant immediately. Michael decisively squatted down and cut the plant, and the Black Tower message followed. From the message displayed, cutting down these contaminated tomatoes could earn experience points. Seeing Michael's shock, Jenny explained that the mutated plants had become monsters. Unlike regular plants needing water and nutrients, these mutated tomato plants required food like insects or other monsters. Thanks to these mutated plants, Jenny had successfully leveled up and believed the research was successful. This was an unprecedented discovery, and if handled well, Jenny believed it could even change the tower's order. Michael agreed with her and decided to abandon the existing crops, replacing them with contaminated tomato plants. If they couldn't grow magical tomatoes, he would turn the place into an experience points farm. Sejun Park, far away on the 99th floor, knew nothing of this. The cocoon given by the bee queen was about to hatch, so Sejun Park waited just like last time. Soon, the cocoon emitted a white light, and the 3rd generation bee queen successfully emerged. A message also indicated that she recognized Sejun Park as her master. Looking at the extremely cute 3rd generation bee queen, Sejun Park happily greeted her and, along with the first 2 queens, presented her with fresh flowers, which made the 3rd generation queen very happy. Next, the first 2 queens took her to learn how to fly. Meanwhile, Sejun Park lay down to rest contentedly. He hoped these peaceful and stable days would continue. However, before he could close his eyes, he was sprayed with black ink on his face. The sudden change made him sit up abruptly, and when he looked up, it was the little bear. The little bear excitedly shared, "This is a new creature from the pond." Ignoring the ink on his face, Sejun Park began to pay attention to this new discovery.